Welcome to the Multifaceted Executive, the podcast where leadership meets diversity, innovation, and impact. We go beyond boardrooms and titles to bring you powerful stories and insights from executives of all backgrounds. Get ready to challenge conventional thinking, gain fresh perspectives, and discover the leadership lessons you won't hear anywhere else. I'm your host, Amanda Cosme-Reddie, founder and CEO of the Multifaceted Executive and Take Brand Consulting. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Multifaceted Executive Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Cosme-Reddie, founder and CEO of the Multifaceted Executive and Take Brand Consulting. A multifaceted executive is a leader with many facets. They're not defined by a single industry, background, or lifestyle, but rather their ability to adapt, inspire, and create change in different spaces. With the holidays approaching us, I'm gifting you all with a special episode and your last for the first season of this podcast. This has been an incredible experience, and it's just the beginning. Joining me today is Tiffani Nielson, a chief marketing officer who has built her career on agility, innovation, and the power of knowing when to change your vision, not your purpose. Tiffani, thank you for joining me, and I invite you to further introduce yourself to our listeners before we dive into your story.
Thank you, Amanda, for having me today. It's a pleasure. Thank you for all of you watching. I'm Tiffani Nielson. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at IoT Marketing, and I'm also a new mom. I have a 2-year-old, so that's exciting.
That is awesome. Welcome to motherhood.
Thank you.
So, Tiffani, you and I have had a few discussions before this. Let's start with who you are as a leader. Beyond the roles and the titles and the accomplishments, how would you describe yourself today?
At this point in my career, I would have to describe my leadership as agile, adaptable, and resilient.
As we continue on with Tiffany's story, you'll see exactly how being agile, adaptable, and resilient has really helped her, especially in this purpose-driven AI era that we're in. Tiffani, I know that you had even some significant changes happen during COVID. Can you walk us through the moment you realized you needed a pivot from trade shows and things of that nature, and what that shift taught you about agility and resilience?
Well, at the dawn of COVID, I kind of saw COVID coming from a distance because I was also working with another company, and we were launching the world's smallest cellular module, which was stuck in certification in China. And I didn't exactly have boots on the ground there to go just knock on the door and see what's happening. And so as I started digging around to see what was taking so long with them getting back to me, I realized, oh my gosh, China's having a pandemic and it's probably on the way here. And so looking at IoT marketing and their current trajectory, they were really focused on trade shows. We were booking a lot of trade shows. And I realized that this strategy was not going to work. And so we needed to quickly pivot. And I never like to present a problem without a solution. So as I started brainstorming and thinking, okay, what are we going to do in place of trade shows to market these tech companies? I realized that people are going to still need connected solutions now more than ever before. And we also needed a way to keep the tech ecosystem connected. We decided to do Industry Insights webinars, which was a monthly webinar series where we would talk about how technology is used in a new industry each month. It was quite the pivot to go from trade shows to webinars. And it was at a time when webinars aren't as prevalent as they are today. So it was kind of a new thing that people were going to have to get into. But it worked out great for us. And we covered so many different industries from when trade shows go dark, because I think it's commonly overlooked how much of an impact that alone has. I mean, just to fuel the economy and everything else, to manufacturing, energy, connected health, and smart cities. And by the end of the first year, we were seeing a lot of success, and Disney wanted to be a part of what we were doing and be recognized for all the hard work that they were doing using IoT in their parks. So that's when things really started to jump off with our success and our successful pivot.
I love that. And, a lot of leaders will get stuck into we need to do the same things. And when external change forces you to change your approach, Some leaders have trouble with that, but I have a sense that you really used trust as a core value when going through this pivot. And so, being that trust has really showed up as one of your core values, especially in this world shaped by AI. Why is trust more important now than ever? And how have you built that?
Well, AI is not a search engine. It's a gatekeeper. And when it's recommending these results, it's showing the trusted content. And so it's important to be authentic, to cite your sources and those kinds of things. But it's really about establishing trust with your audience. And so those are ways that you can do that to establish trust. But it's really about presenting factual information and removing the bias, removing the opinions and really just getting to the facts about things. And I think that's what's really shined through in our content is that we're not positioning the messaging to highlight a specific solution. We're brand agnostic. And so by really talking about, the underlying challenges that these industries were having during COVID and they continue to experience, that really assisted us to present the material in a way that means something to our audience.
I love that. How has AI evolved in your line of work?
Well, I've watched it evolve throughout all of these different industries that we've covered because when we first started doing it, it was really the focus was still about IoT, and IoT is a key enabler for AI. And so, for anyone unfamiliar with what IoT is, it's the Internet of Things. So it's things like your connected coffee pot, your smart washing machine. It's telling the system, how many loads if you're having a problem, your smart thermostat, and where you can control the different settings on there. So it's those kind of things. And so AI is coming in and it's making it so much smarter because you're able to see where you're lacking efficiency and be able to maximize productivity in ways that are really unimaginable when you think about the enterprise size scale of things and how it's able to connect trillions of data points throughout millions or even billions of customers, depending on how large of a company that you're looking at. When it comes to marketing, it's completely changed because before it was an afterthought to try to use the AI for something. And within the past, I want to say like 3 to 4 years, it has just ramped up at this supersonic speed where you have to incorporate AI into your strategies because you need to know what your competitors are doing. You need to keep an eye on so many different things that without AI, it makes it really difficult. And you still want to keep that creative element within your writing, but it's becoming more and more that you have to fit into these guidelines for AI to even find your content and then place you within the search results. Because if you're not formatting your content for AI, it'll never find you.
Yeah, and it's almost like there's been more efficiencies with AI, but there's also been more complexity with it. You've also shared about education, community, and sustainability and how that guides your work. How do these values show up in the platforms that you're building and the decisions that you're making as a leader?
So we're launching a new platform. It's called TechScope Connect, and it's a community. So it's engagement based, but it's also a content hub for all of the 100 plus events that we've hosted, where people can go and really learn more about these connected solutions or network with like-minded professionals. And so community is really important to me. I think that in this world we're living in where so many people are disconnected, so having a sense of community, even if it's an online platform, is something that people really need in their life because there's so many things that are distracting them, disconnecting them, that they want somewhere to be able to come together and to learn. And so education's always been something that's a passion of mine. It's important to me. Being able to provide a space where professionals can learn from each other and share their knowledge is something that is at the core of everything that we're doing right now. And the sustainability piece is just something that I've always kind of had at the heart of me that, there's so many things with technology alone that are going into the landfill that shouldn't. They can be recycled. And there's so many things about the way that people are building the hardware for technology that could be optimized so that they can work on other pieces of equipment and not just a one and done. All right, let's get rid of this. And then it all goes into the landfill. So sustainability is at the core of what we're doing, innovations at the core of what we're doing. Creativity is at the core of everything that we're doing. I always like to make things fun. So I think fun is one of my core values too. I mean, fun is in my name, Tiffani. So it's got to be fun.
That is so funny, Tiffany. I love that. Yeah, no, that's it's been awesome to learn like how you utilize these values, but also I love to see how compassionate you are about the sustainability and how you're leveraging that across the organization and in the marketing, because I think that's what was so important, right? I when we are caring more about just our roles and what we're doing in an organization, but how are we impacting the world, our communities, those are such powerful moments. And so I commend you for the work that you're doing and what you're inspiring across the organization. So thank you for sharing that. And before we move on from the value piece, I always like my guests to share a little bit more about their background and their upbringing, because that's really helped shape who we are, and how we lead. And so, what lessons did you learn from your parents about hard work, goal setting, creating memorable experiences that really show up for you professionally today?
Well, my family has always been very hardworking. They would work two, three jobs if they had to, just to make sure that we had enough money to not only be happy and have everything that we wanted, but also to go on vacations. And I think it's important that people take vacations because it gives you something to look forward to. And so that was always something that my parents had taught us, that you set goals and then you plan for it and you think things through, and you think things through really well if you're going on a vacation with my parents, because they're going to want to stop at every single awesome thing that's on the way and make sure they don't miss anything. And it gets a little jam packed in their scheduling, but it's worth it because they created such memorable experiences for us and they were always so prepared. And I think that's something that really stuck with me too, is being prepared and, thinking, oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? And really considering the what ifs in every situation, and thinking outside the box is something that they also always taught me. Okay, well, let's look at this through a different lens. They never had any bias. They were very open-minded, and I think that really shines through in my private life, because when they came to my baby shower, they were like, "Oh my gosh, Tiffany, you've got pretty much every age, every race, every ethnicity, every background, every religion. Like, your friends are so different." And so I think that that's also shines through in my leadership and the community that we're building, is that it's for everyone. It's very open-minded, and there's no judgment. It's a kind environment, and that's how I was raised, and that's how I want the community that we're building to be welcoming.
That's awesome. It sounds like your parents really have inspired you to be the leader you are today. And I think it's important that we really dive into those kind of moments, because when we become adults and we go off in our careers, it's like then it becomes all about our careers. Being that you've had this incredible career, I want to know more about mentors that have been a part of your journey, and the impact that they've made on your thinking, your confidence, and how you show up today.
Well, one mentor that comes to mind above the rest would be Peter Anthony Wynn. I was working for him on a project called You Will Change the World, where we would help authors and those with inspiring messages to create online courses. And we would also do that in tandem with these mastermind events. So they would come in, and there were several different iterations of these events. They were very much Tony Robbins style. He worked with Tony Robbins for a long time. And so it's that millionaire mindset. And I learned so much from him, and he was relentless in challenging me. Whatever I was thinking, he would come and just give me something completely different to think about. I can remember going into one of his masterminds, and I was following along as one of the attendees, as if I was just an attendee, and thinking, okay, well, if I was going to create an online course, I would do it like this. And when it came to present the short elevator pitch, mine was different than what he wanted me to do. And he said, well, that's not what I asked you to do. I asked you to do it this way. And it was those kind of moments where it was like, okay, try it again. You think about it another way. And so I learned a lot from him, and he continues to be a mentor of mine and inspires me all the time.
Yeah. It almost sounds like he kind of has similar qualities to your parents in a
Probably.
way.
Probably.
I love that though. That's amazing when we have a mentor that can really challenge us and get us outside of the norm of the way that we think and how we make decisions. That is truly what a mentor does. And so he sounds like an incredible man and one that everyone should follow for sure. Mentors really help us as well just evolve, not just as leaders, but throughout our career. I know you've done some more incredible stuff. You talked about GeoTrack before. What made that such a pivotal moment for you?
We'll talk about a challenge.
Yeah.
So when I was approached to come on board at GeoTrack, and GeoTrack was developing a 2G module. So if you think about how we're at 5G now, 2G was very much in its infancy at this time. And so we were creating this world's smallest cellular module. So it was the size of like your pinky nail or a stamp, but it had small plugs on each side of it for an antenna, a battery, a SIM card, and sensors. We would ultimately be able to collect and pass data from this tiny, tiny device through the internet to any kind of system that was a platform. It was a lot to understand from the get go, because it wasn't that there was a clear guide for learning this at that time. It was so brand new that there wasn't as much information available online, and it was literally that we were drawing out what he was explaining on a whiteboard and trying to make sense of it. And so we were learning from each other, the people that were coming on board at the time, and I never even heard of IoT. And here I am coming on board as communications director, and he had me jumping on the call on calls with everyone from people that did email blast services to people that did SEO and people that were platform providers. It was just this constant stream of learning from just understanding the basics of IoT, which when you get into it, the deeper that you go, you realize that you still are at the edge of the water and that it's just this never-ending abyss of knowledge and information. And even today, where I've been doing this for about 8 years, I still feel like I'm still at the edge of the water because it's so advanced, so deep. It takes a team to really understand the capabilities and to be able to really maximize the potential of the Internet of Things. So that was a learning curve and a challenge in and of itself. And that was really a pivotal moment for me when I was like, okay, it looks like Tiffany's meant to be in tech. And here I am today, still in technology.
Yeah, that was similar for me. I worked for a merchant link, they're now Shift 4, and they were a credit card gateway processor. They were around like right when the chips that we see in our debit and our credit cards, those it's called EMB, and we were basically around when that all started. And so we transitioned from just, financial like platform to fintech because we now had to get PIN pad readers involved and there was IoT and that and how they functioned with the registers and things like that. And so that was my first look into technology and I embraced it. And to your point, like, you just keep going deeper and deeper. There's like way more layers to it. And then eventually made that switch to smartness. I know what you're talking about. And, I love that in your different roles have been the center of working with a variety of different teams. Like you said, you kind of had to connect with different people. Even if I think back to the baby shower, you mentioned you had all these different people and these diverse backgrounds. And, those kind of interactions really help make us multifaceted executives because we have such a different background uniquely, their own upbringing, their own culture. But when we're able to adapt in a lot of different spaces with different people and make such a great impact, that really strengthens our value to our community, to our workplace, to our families, etc. So thank you so much for sharing about GeoTrack. I know that was a huge success for you. Now, thinking about all the success that you've had. I know you've talked a lot about how setting goals and making plans and celebrating milestones has been a really important part of that. And so, how has that shaped your personal and professional definition of leadership success?
Well, I think there's a variety of different goals because there's personal goals, there's professional goals, and there's milestones because there's, the success that you'll see at the end, but you have to set the milestones in between to celebrate the small wins because without that, things are hard to gauge when you reach the point of success. And so you have to find smaller milestones that you can make to get to the finish line, if you will. But I think that goal setting is so important.
Yeah. Yeah, and I believe you used a lot in another one of your ventures. Again, Tiffany's multifaceted. So continue getting ready to hear amazing things from her. I was also very moved by the tough crossroads that she faced with Pet Blaster or finishing her book. So that was another moment that she had to really think through the goals and the planning. Tell us a little bit more about what that moment taught you and choosing the path that really aligned with your purpose and momentum.
Well, there are times in life when you just get hit by like this lightning strike of creativity and you're like, oh my gosh, this is a great idea. This is a great idea. Given I bought probably 350 domains at the time, I can't believe I did. I still have like 100 of them. A lot of projects that are sitting on the shelf waiting to be finished. But the two that I decided to run with because I figured if I embarked on all of these 350 domains at once, that was just going to run me into the ground. The two that I decided to pursue were Pet Blaster, a pet social network where you could connect travel and it was your one source for everything pets. And that project was incredible. My heart still has a part of me that wants to still do something with animals, with pets, with some kind of social network for that, bring back Pet Blaster. But I got it up to 100,000 members, which is a huge accomplishment. So consider that a success, yes, but it's more of a milestone and not the finish line of it. Because if I had it my way, I would have had my pet parks, I would have had everything. Regardless, I knew that this was a 10-year, 20-year, it could have been a 100-year plan, which is really the perfect kind of corporation to start. So my heart still misses Pet Blaster a little bit. But I decided at the same time I needed to write a book because I had moved out to Las Vegas from Ohio and I had so many people messaging me at the time saying, well, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I get into the nightclubs? What should I wear? All these things. And I said, oh, somebody needs to write a guide, a Sin City survival guide. And I can remember the day that I was sitting on my couch with my friend George and I was talking to him about it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to write this guide. I'm going to be the one. I'm going to write this book, Sin City Survival Guide. And he said, ha ha ha, you're going to write a book. Do you know how many times I've heard this? And I was like, I'm going to prove you wrong, George. I'm going to get this book done. But I knew that I couldn't finish both at the same time. And while I'd written some of Sin City Survival Guide and it was looking good, and I, was getting Pet Blaster up to some pretty strong numbers at that point, I knew that I couldn't finish both of them. And I really felt like I needed to celebrate a win. I needed to have for myself, for the people that were working with me, I needed to have something final that I could present as, okay, look, I accomplished this. And I had to make a tough choice, but I decided to choose the book because the book I could finish, I could publish, I could get it out there, and I could feel the success from that to be able to power me through with Pet Blaster. However, I was offered a TV show as a result of the book, so I decided to do that. I was featured on local TV as well as syndicated around the world internationally. And so the TV show was Surviving Sin City, and it was a great success. I had a lot of fun. I felt like I gave a lot of people a platform to be able to feature themselves, their businesses. One person in particular that comes to mind there is Debbie Carroll. She designs all of the Miss Universe, Miss USA dresses and pageants. She really got her foothold as a part of being on Surviving Sin City. And now she's designing dresses for all of the winners of all of these different competitions.
Wow, just amazing. And I really want everyone to tune into this moment because there's a lot of times where we have all kinds of different priorities that happen, and some are new, some are old, but we get stuck sometimes with understanding, okay, what do I need to prioritize now, or do I need to continue focusing on this? I've been in a program with Dr. Betty. She's a renowned global leader, and it's called Elevate Your Life Mastermind program. Something that we learned in the last course that we took is, what is your 1%? What is that one thing that you're going to really put majority of your focus on? And that can change even if it's something else at the current time. And so for you to have made that decision to pivot away from Pet Blaster, it opened up this whole other door for you, where not only were you able to fulfill your own dreams and goals with writing your book, but then you helped so many other people in the process, and then it led to the show that helped even more people. And I bet in that moment you kind of felt like, I did the right thing. I made the right decision. Am I accurate with that? Did you make the right decision? Do you ever feel like there was any regrets for pausing Pet Blaster and really pivoting?
Yes, I made the right choice because I'm not about living in regrets or the past or I wish I would have done this kind of moment. So for me, yes, because it led to me having my son. The whole path that I've chose has led me right here where I want to be. This whole experience has had me really thinking, well, what is my purpose? And we all have those moments where we have to stop and reflect. Is it still the same as what it was? And what truly at the core of all this, whether it was Pet Blaster, whether it's a Sin City Survival Guide or Surviving Sin City or Tech Scope Connect, whatever I'm working on, what is at the core? And you brought this out in me, Amanda. And so after brainstorming over the past week, I've really decided it's all about connecting. It's about connecting people. And I think it's going to be even more important as we move forward with these advanced technologies is keeping people connected in every way, shape, or form, whether that's through pets, a trip to Vegas, whatever it might be, that we're keeping people connected.
I love that. My husband and I, we don't go to Vegas as much anymore, and I think it's because we literally went like almost 4 times a year before. We live in Arizona, so it's just a quick drive right over to Las Vegas. And so I didn't even know about your book at the time. So I feel like had I had that, we would have been able to have so much more fun because we would
Yeah.
have like, we kind of had things that we knew we liked doing like all the time. And then sometimes we would try something new, a show or whatever it was. But, having that resource from you, I think would have helped us even with all the trips that we made. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing. You've had a lot of amazing moments and successes and challenges that came with everything. This platform is to encourage audiences from all backgrounds, cultures, because the reality is we do have some gaps from race to gender to cultures in, executive roles, especially C-suite. You and I talked a little bit about like your approach really to helping underrepresented leaders. And, a lot of those leaders feel stuck or overlooked. And so because that is also a lot of the audience that we have, what is your advice for knowing, when it's time to shift a vision, adjust their messaging, and take a leap in a different direction and not be afraid to do it, regardless of where they come from or what they look like?
A lot of times, the messaging of whatever you're trying to convey could be coming across wrong because as we look at all these different viewpoints, that everyone hears things a little bit differently. So maybe what you're presenting isn't presented to reach your audience. So if you find yourself in somewhat of a slump, take a look and really try to figure out what could be missing and be willing to adjust your plan. Maybe you need to do things in a different order. For example, with Pet Blaster, I wanted everything ready to go right as soon as I started. And it just wasn't possible because the technology wasn't there. So I had to choose, okay, I could have this functionality and that functionality, and this would support this messaging. This would reach my audience this way. Sometimes you have to do that. You have to be willing to make these small adjustments to make it work and really take into account who needs to hear your message and what they need to hear you.
Yeah, I love that. It's really staying focused on your vision and knowing that you can change it, but just don't change your purpose in the process. Even having my own challenges as a leader throughout my career in corporate, as an entrepreneur, etc. We talked a lot about values, and we always do in every episode, but it's so important to stay true to those values because no matter what you're focused on, what you're great at, how you manage, different moments in your life, your values are what are going to help keep you around the right people and attracted to the right people, the right sponsors, the right mentors. And that's something that I want to make sure that they're taking away from our conversation too, which has been wonderful, by the way, Tiffani. Thank you again for joining as a guest speaker. What is the best way for the audience to connect with you after this?
LinkedIn works great. You can find me on there. It's Tiffani Nielson. I also encourage you to check out TechScope Connect. That's techscopeconnect.com. You can also go to IoT Marketing's website. It's iotmktg.com. And so there you can find all of our upcoming events. And another thing I want to mention about the community and about IoT marketing is that within all the events that we've hosted, it's been really important to me to hear from these different executives and leaders from around the world. So we have over 128 countries that are represented in our audience. I've had people from all over the globe participate on our virtual stage, and it's really been incredible to hear what's happening there in these different locations and these different roles where before the pandemic, I felt like everything was really siloed and that you needed to stay in your lane. And I feel like as a result of COVID and everything moving online, we're seeing things open up more and that trust is becoming more visible as well. And so by looking at things from these different views from the person that is actually in this industry that is trying to find a solution to specific challenges to the solution providers that maybe are speaking about their solution so much that they aren't talking about the actual problem that they're solving. So that's where it ties back into adjusting your messaging and really trying to connect with that audience. So that's what we're trying to do with TechScope Connect. So please check it out.
Awesome. Thank you for that takeaway and also for sharing more about Tech Connect, IoT marketing. You've been a part of some amazing organizations and projects. And so I know that we'll continue to see that from you. And now you all know where to stay connected with Tiffani. Of course, we always publish our episodes on LinkedIn, so we will tag her there as well. I know that people are going to follow you from here. So that's awesome. And of course, for our audience, as always, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, download the episodes on Spotify, and follow us on LinkedIn. Until then, thanks for listening to the Multifaceted Executive Podcast, where each episode reminds us that leadership looks different from every seat at the table.